Now to Montreal, where Pierre Trudeau observes the exchange of angry words between the Prime Minister of Canada and the Premier of Quebec.
With Ben, the Canadian taxpayer will have been provided with some relief. For you and I will have had the satisfaction of knowing that whilst we were engaged in eating Christmas pudding, some of our favorite politicians will have been eating their own words. Quebec has prior rights in the field of income taxation, was the cry that Mr. Duplessis had written into law when the year 1954 was a fortnight old. But before 9 moons had waned, a certain discussion on neutral ground had convinced him that he had better swallow his claims to priority. Ottawa will never recognize full deductibility of the provincial income tax, was the position of Mr. St-Laurent in reply to the Quebec law last spring. Yet, before the year was out, it appeared that full deductibility was precisely one of the formulae that the federal experts were prepared to consider. It may bring some consolation to Mr. Duplessis to know that the leader of the provincial opposition will fare no better than the Premier, since Mr. Lapalme was as wrong at one extreme as Mr. Duplessis was at the other. And Mr. St-Laurent may well take comfort in sharing his humble pie with Messrs. Drew and Caldwell, who had seen fit to endorse the government's unenlightened intractability. Yet in the eyes of the public, the fact will remain that all of the politicians in all of the parties will have proven themselves incapable during the better part of a year of coping with the tax problem, the solution of which now appears to have required little more than common sense. In point of fact, such a solution had been suggested in some detail as early as last March by one of the labor bodies in Quebec. How then can one explain such shortcomings on the part of the front, the middle, and the backbenchers, and of the economic experts, so-called? The presumption grows that our valiant statesmen on all sides were more interested in playing political football with the issues of provincial autonomy and racial feeling than in engineering agreements which would reconcile the conflicting requirements of political decentralism and of economic unionism. It would indeed have been a pleasant sight had the general public decided to boycott the entire game. But instead, Mr. St-Laurent's side was given quite a boost by all who take neurotic pleasure in being told that Quebec is reactionary. And Mr. Duplessis was enabled to rally the hesitant nationalists who had begun to find themselves crying in the wilderness. As a consequence, many Canadians who had been striving to arrest the trend at the national level towards the one-party state will have to contend with the Liberal Party of renewed vigor. And many Quebecers who had hoped to fight the next provincial election on a platform of social progress will be swamped by the reanimated seas of nationalism and autonomy. If the main purpose of a government lie in the preparation of its own eventual re-election, then there is no doubt that during 1954 our federal and provincial governments have builded well. But if the purpose be to guide and educate the people in the ways of self-fulfillment, if it be to approach problems of federalism in terms of reason rather than of passion, if it be to generate mutual respect and tolerance between the two groups which constitute the foundation of this bi-ethnical country, then it may be said that a mighty task still lies ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Trudeau.